Welcome back to Ask Dr. Vincent After Hours series with me, Dr. Vincent, and my co-host Stephen.
Hey everyone, good to be back.
And I know that people on Instagram, please don't get sick of me because I was just on for almost 2.5 hours this morning. And thank you for keeping me company whilst I was doing my Shop LC live.
So exciting.
Thank you. And for those of you who were curious. I don't know whether or not you wanted to know, but we were sold out for two of our items, which work out to be like one item every almost 3.5 seconds. So our Immunity Plus is gone, our face cleanser is gone, and we had a couple of dozens left of the face serum. But by the time this is up, we probably would have sold out that too. But anyway, welcome to Ask Dr. Vincent After Our series for people who are joining in from Substack. Thank you so much for joining us on Tuesday afternoon, 2:10 in the afternoon, Australian Standard Eastern Time. And last time we were on Substack, there was a 45 minutes gap. So I know for those of you that are already tuning in and just probably wondering why I only just say hello to you, that is because we didn't want to get cut off at the first part of this Substack series. So welcome everyone.
And there's so much that we talk about while we're waiting for Substack. And I want to make sure that all of our Substack listeners don't think it's their fault. It's not
No,
their fault at
it's
all.
not your
We,
fault.
we love you, which is why we wait for you.
And you know what? There's no such thing as too many social media platforms to be on. So if you happen to miss us on Substack, please make sure to follow us on Ask Dr. Vincent everywhere else,
Yeah.
including Instagram. Um, and today we we are gonna do a little bit of a follow up from last week's
Mm,
topics because I stir up something, so to speak, pun intended, in Steven's mind because after a very robust discussion about food labeling
mm.
and food provenance safety as well as information that we discussed last week, you went on to doing a lot more research when it comes to what we are being sold to at the
Exactly.
supermarket, hospitality venue, and
Yeah.
even on your delivery app.
I was really interested in taking the conversation a little bit further. Now, all of our listeners know that I'm a little bit curious. I often tend to go down the rabbit hole when investigating something new.
Well, they need us to do this because people are time poor to do their own research. They need a
Absolutely.
validated, reliable research being told to them, being disseminated to them in a simple
Yeah.
way.
And that's what we try to do.
Yay!
Hopefully people agree.
Well, 11,000 people strong followers agree.
Awesome. So last week we were talking about some of the issues that were brought up by the ABC Four Corners report, and I think that there's a whole lot in the media that's being spoken about around those details. I wanted to go a slightly different direction,
Okay.
and also a forward-looking direction as well. So there are
Take us onto the journey.
So there are a couple of things about labeling that I think most of our listeners and readers of the newsletter will have noticed if they'd looked. The first one is that you have to be clear with the ingredients that are in your product, and so you can't just say um, some strange name for something that you don't want people to know is soy. You actually have to say soy.
Yeah.
You can't. You can no longer say just nuts.
Yes.
You need to name what the nut is. But I think that one of the other interesting things about labeling that we've found is that there is labeling and then there's marketing.
That is correct.
And so I think that there are a whole lot of examples, and there's quite a bit of research into it, where you might pick up something which is actually highly processed food with a lot of sugar in it, but it's got a strawberry on the front of it. And so the initial thought by the consumer is, oh, this must be good for you. Do you think that there are a lot of products in that space, and what should
Certainly,
we be looking for?
certainly, and not only the representation of usually either fruit or vegetable to give you that healthy perception. We call this a health halo
Mm,
when it comes to the way to market food or beverage. The other thing also, on top of trying to mask their products as a healthy product, sometimes they also present it in the way that represent a complete meal. And
Ah.
there's a little disclaimer down probably on the right corner of the front label that says serving suggestion.
Mhm.
But nobody's reading those two words. People are looking at,
Ah.
wow, this pack of instant noodle actually contain protein, contain vegetables, and therefore might be healthy for me because it's a full meal instead of just the noodles.
Yeah.
And this is a problem that I have because countries like Japan, for example, number one, the picture in front of the packaging needs to represent the true size of the food inside.
Okay.
Number two, when, say for example, when they are selling fruit drinks versus fruit juice, the representation of that fruit, that is the ingredient or the flavor of that drink, are not the same. So I can't remember on the top of my mind,
Mm.
but I think if you are presenting a whole fruit, it needs to be 100% juice.
Okay.
When it's animated fruit, then it represents fruit drink
So
because
if it's
fruit.
got eyes on it, it's probably fruit drink,
That's correct.
and if it's a real apple, it's probably apple juice.
Yes, and the attitude towards that, I don't even know, and I'm not trying to glorify the regulatory body there or the consumer expectation, but probably it's a combination of the two factors:
Yep.
regulatory body enforcing the rules, as well as consumers expecting the labels to tell them the truth.
Mm.
But it works because, like we said last week, a lot of times people don't have time reading the fine prints or even
Exactly.
turning the food to read the back
Oh,
label.
and I need to make sure that I take my glasses when I go
One of your
shopping.
very many glasses. But the way that it works in Japan, the purpose of this differentiation of either coloring, the type of graphics, as well as the true representation of the size of the food product inside the packaging,
Mm.
they have one purpose, which is to inform people so that they can make a quick and correct decision. And I think it's one thing to say that people have to eat healthy, and uh, quite another thing to say that, well, people can buy whatever they want. I think that's true. However, making a choice and deciding to buy certain things without knowing the full picture, I
Mm.
think that's where the malice stays.
Yeah, yeah. No, I absolutely agree. Definitely. I think it's very easy to look at kids' foods as well, and like obviously the marketers are trying to make them bright and cheery and like exciting for kids, so that the child wants the food. But I feel like it extends through into other types of products and products for adults
That's correct.
as well.
But you brought up a really important point because the reason why they often seemingly target toddlers or kids are because they're investing in the new generation of customers that
Mm.
probably, hopefully, in their mind, will stay with them for forever. There is a very classic example that just recently just recirculated on Instagram is the difference between baby and toddler products made by very, very famous company,
Okay.
Nestle. And the author of this study made a comparison between exactly the same branded product, but one is marketed in the developing countries
Okay.
and the other one in the Western country or
Right.
developed
Well,
countries,
more mature markets,
richer market.
richer market.
So products that under the same brand, products that are marketed in the Western country, Western society, especially in Europe, they have little to none added sugar.
Mm.
Whereas in South Africa, for example, or in the developing country in Southeast Asia, especially in Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia, the amount of added sugar in this children product, in this baby product, could be 600% more compared to
Wow.
those marketed to a more developed,
Mm.
richer country. And
Is it
I do think that, and I obviously Nestle didn't have a statement or official statement explaining this beyond that. Recipes and formulation can differ and vary between different markets. However, I can't help but thinking, and this is my personal thought, I can't help but thinking that in in the developing country, the market is probably the buying power is lower.
Mm-hmm.
And adding sugar to get that flavor profile and to get them hooked and
Yeah.
stay loyal to the brand is probably the goal rather than healthy. But this is the thing. This is the thing. You are almost like placing people in different tiers when it comes to health. And
Yeah.
this is something that is at the very core of me being a scientist, is that health should not just be reserved for people who can afford it.
Mm. And while processing food so that they last longer, so that they have a longer shelf life, so that they're more nutritious, probably should be the focus.
Yes, and you another excellent point that you just brought up. I am not anti-processed food. As a matter of fact, I am one of the strongest proponent when it comes to food processing. Not necessarily ultra processing, but food processing, because it is easy to romanticize back in the day when all fruit and vegetables and food products were made fresh.
Mhm.
Yes, but they only last 2 to 3 days without
Yeah.
refrigeration, without processing, without all of this amazing advancement in food engineering and food technology. And the problem is not the processing itself, because it helps to reduce the rate of hunger and poverty in the world.
Yeah.
The problem is engineering these products to be addictive, to be something that provides empty calories without necessarily making people healthy. And the argument has always been that, okay, the food is safe, but we are so far beyond just making the food safe. That should
Mm.
not be something that food manufacturers are touting as one of their, pride. That should just be the bare minimum. It should
Yeah.
goes without saying that
Good.
food products should be safe.
Table stakes is
Yes,
yeah.
but we then need to talk about whether it helps us to be healthy, whether it actually contributes to our overall health, not only for today, tomorrow, and next year, but for 50 years to come, especially when we are talking about food that is intended to be consumed
Mhm.
by children.
So Vincent, I feel like I've got a bit of a summary floating around in my head. Let me play it back to you
Okay.
and see if it works for you. Um, so we've spoken about allergens, and I'll come back to allergens, but we've spoken a lot about sugar and added things. So I guess my 4-point plan is to pretty much ignore what's on the front of the packet. That seems to be number one, and turn whatever it is over. Uh, and look at, is it the first 3 ingredients? I've heard that in the market before, look at the first 3 things.
So
You
I
go,
know you are summarizing, right? Let me try to summarize your summarization. So basically, you're saying to us that we should just cut through the prepare to blip. We should just cut through the bullshit.
Yep, read the
I
label.
love that.
Yep, read the label.
But yes, the first 3 to 5 ingredients.
Okay. And then total sugars. Like, is there a limit? I think I've asked you this before. Per 100 grams, I tend to use a bit of a 20% kind of number myself.
So that's a good general rule of thumb. Obviously, it's very different from one product to another. Say, for example, it is impossible for you to find jam, for example, with just 20% of sugar.
Yeah.
There is a trade-off. Obviously, you can have light or diet jam, but then you will have to deal with thickener and sweeteners. And not all artificial sweeteners or 0 calorie sweeteners are bad, but it comes with different types of risks. For
Yeah.
example, digestive issue, or it may kill your microbiome. So there is a trade-off. But generally, when we talk about either snacks or drinks or pasta sauce
Mhm.
or curry sauce in the jar, between 15 to 20%, that is something that, in my mind, is within the
Yeah.
tolerance level.
What does confuse me on some of these labels, though, is where it says no added sugar, but then I look at the sugars and it's fairly high. Does that mean that it's sugars from the raw materials that are going into that product?
Yes. So, for example, if you buy dried mango dried mango snacks or dried strawberry or dried apples, even though they don't add sugar, which can be done if you freeze dry it, for example, but the natural sugar content in that raw material in the source is already very high.
Okay.
So processing takes away the water from that product, and that makes the sugar content even higher. And this is the reason why when we talk about eat your fruit and vegetables, we're not talking about juice. We're not talking about dried fruit or different types of food products.
Unprocessed products.
We're talking about fresh fruit and vegetables when we say that, you know, the dietary guidelines in Australia is 2 serves of fruit and 5 serves of vegetables, which is alarming because have a guess how many of us Australians actually do that?
Would be a tiny number. So 1 in 10?
I think it is 2 in 10 or 1 in
2 in 10.
5.
Wow.
Which is really concerning because we live in a land where access to fresh fruit and vegetables is actually quite easy compared to anywhere else in the world. And the thing about sugar also is that sometimes it hides, or the manufacturers try to hide it in multiple different names.
Okay.
And this is something that is, in my mind, not very straightforward because, again, people are busy. They want to be able to look at the nutritional panel and be able to tell whether or not it contains high amount of sugar. The other thing that's also really bothering me is, for example, if you buy a pack of snakes, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
These are lollies or candies, snakes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not. We're in Australia, so it's probably we need to qualify.
That is very, very correct. Thank you.
Sorry, if you buy
Thank you, Stephen.
jelly snakes. Let's go there.
Jelly snakes. Yes. Lollies, candies, sweets, whatever it is that you call it in your country. It will, on the front pack, the front label of this packaging, it will say 99.99% fat free.
Yes.
A lot of people will automatically associate it with low calorie. But sugar does not contain fat. You still get the same amount of calorie. Well, not the same, but you still get calories from eating the sugar rather than automatically assuming that because it's 99%
it's not a
fat free, it is not a 99% calorie free because there are other things that contributes to the calorie count. Protein, in this case, sugar, carbohydrate, and alcohol too. Alcohol is not calorie free. So a very quick, cheat sheet that I always use, and this is the reason why I can't really work with kilojoules. I know that this is the standard units in Australia, but I can tell you what is the kilojoules after I calculate in calories. So 1 gram of carbohydrates, so including in this sugar, complex carbohydrate, rice, potato, roughly around 4 calories.
Yeah. Okay.
1 gram of protein is roughly around 4 calories. 1 gram of fat is roughly around 9 calories. And 1 gram of alcohol is roughly around 7 calories. So the way that so one of my superpowers, number one is that I can sleep at any time, anywhere. Number two, I can look at a plate of food and give me a couple of seconds, couple of minutes. I can tell you roughly how many calories or kilojoules it is. And that's how I do it. By obviously, when you have rice, then automatically you just calculate it as a carbohydrate.
Yep.
And then when you have chicken, I know it contains fat and everything, but just calculate as roughly as protein. And then if you add, I don't know, a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise, just calculate it as fat. And then when you have all of the calories together, you times that by 4 and you get kilojoules.
I feel like I probably need to put that in the newsletter to share.
I was about to say, that is your incentive to make sure that you read our newsletters. And you know what? Stephen cannot make it any easier. So you have options of reading it via email, reading it on a web browser, or print it out in the form of PDF. So if you miss out on reading it, we have a library full.
We do. We have an archive now.
17 issues,
Something
I think.
like that. Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm slowly going back and putting some descriptions in as well.
It's a work in progress, but without Stephen, this wouldn't have happened. So please, the the least you could do is follow us, like, and subscribe, because that
Yeah.
gives us all the motivation to keep on doing this week in and week out.
So coming back to alcohol, because
Yes.
this is something that I was pleasantly surprised at. Our There is, from the 13th of August, 2028, so a couple of years away,
Yes.
almost to the day. Uh, Most packaged alcohol beverages will need to display energy information. So,
I welcome this new regulation with an open
mm,
arm, an open heart, because uh, a lot of times when people drink alcohol, they don't automatically associate it with something that will contribute to their calorie intake.
yeah,
And we know that pro- wine, spirits, and beer, or low calorie beer or low carbs beer, are probably not the worst offenders. Is the cocktails that are, they can be
mm,
laden with sugar syrup, simple syrup,
yeah,
agave, just because it sounds fancy, agave, that contributes to almost the same amount of calorie as simple syrup or sugar syrup. So
yeah.
when
Agave is actually not great for you either.
exactly, just because it comes from plants, I mean, we are so removed from our food system, right? Sugar comes from plants too.
Mm.
So for those of you who commented that chips or fries are technically vegetables, true, but so is sugar, because sugar comes from plant. So from sugar cane. So
Mm.
this is something that you need to know, that just because it is plant based or vegan or
Mm.
vegetarian, it doesn't automatically means it
That's
does not
right.
automatically mean that it's natural and healthy.
Also, I think in the labeling requirements that I've downloaded and read, it's energy per serving. But I'm not sure anybody actually does a per serving calculation on normal everyday food, let alone alcohol. My servings of a glass of wine are probably over the 150 ml that they're supposed
Okay,
to be.
well, that is just you, because I have
Really?
RSA. I have RSA. I know exactly the perfect amount of one standard drink. I don't follow it, but I do
No,
know.
that's right. But in addition to the per serving guide, there is the energy per 100 milliliters,
Yes,
and that's I think that's probably going to be the key that most people will look at. There is a serving size, servings per pack, which is on most wine at the moment, actually, and standard drinks per serving, which again, if you're looking at your packaged alcohol, you'll probably see how many standard drinks
I
there
think
are in
that's a lot.
45%
You have to put that on the label.
right now.
But I really like, yes, right now. Sorry. Uh, what I really like from what you just told us, which when you told me just before the show, I was both pleasantly surprised and just surprised, because I thought that this should have been done a while back,
Mhm.
because a lot of people only associate diabetes with the consumption of sugar from food and sugary drinks. But alcohol actually one of the contributors to the elevated risk of developing diabetes,
Mm.
because alcohol changes the way that your body metabolizes sugar or glucose. And not only that, again, when you are drinking, it's so easy to drink a a glass of amaretto sour or whiskey sour or French martini, because it tastes really good because of the sweetness. But then you have the double whammy of having the sugar, the calorie from the sugar, but also the calorie from the alcohol.
Yeah.
So I'm going around the world to explain that this is the reason why I only drink champagne, especially the brut or extra dry.
Because you think there's less sugar?
It is 1 gram per liter, and with that amount of sugar in the champagne, it's
Yeah,
basically keto.
yeah.
I am just joking. Don't come at me. I know exactly what alcohol does to your body, and I always say that people always seem to be really surprised when they find out that I drink alcohol. When I say that I drink alcohol, I don't drink it to get drunk. I don't need alcohol to have fun at a party. I don't need alcohol to have a good time. Have you met me? I am happy. This is my standard setting. This is my default setting.
The energy is normal.
The energy is normal. However, I do believe that alcohol plays a role in our social interaction. I know that some people are more predisposed towards developing addiction. However, like everything else, in moderation, I think it can help people to be a lot more social. I do know that sometimes, especially as an ambassador of Are You OK Day Today campaign, together with Beyond Blue, I think for a lot of guys, one of the way that they connect with their mates is at the pub. And as long as it's in moderation, I don't think that is a bad thing. And at the end of the day, it is about what is good for you. Obviously, people need to make decision for themselves. I happen to be a person who would enjoy a glass or two of wine every now and then. I do know that I make a little bit of a not a rule, not a hard rule, and I will still drink midweek if I'm out, especially for work. But most weeks, I will try not to drink in the middle of the week, and probably instead of drinking 3 bottles of wine during the week, I'll save for a better bottle of wine every 2 weeks.
I really like that idea, and I think having a couple of nights off is a good way to start. If you're a heavy
Yes,
drinker right now, it is hard to change habits
it is
around alcohol for sure.
around anything. I mean, coffee, for example,
Yeah,
snacking, or all of these things that you don't know if you do it 3 days in a row or 3 times in a row, you're on your way of developing a habit,
a habit. Yeah,
which sounds really scary. But at the same time, it is also really good for you to to gain confidence that you can pick up good habit and make healthy habit using the same principle. If you do, if you go to the gym 3 days in a row, or if you attend your fitness class 3 days in a row, if you go for a walk during your lunch break 3 days in a row, you are actually more likely to keep that habit compared to if you don't do it at all.
yeah, absolutely. So if you are struggling with alcohol, please
Seek help.
seek
It is
help.
nothing embarrassing. It is not a sign of
No,
weakness. It is something, as a matter of fact, I always think that people who ask for help is demonstrating strength, because uh, you need to be really good at knowing what you're good at. But at the same time, you also need to be really good at recognizing when you need help.
yeah,
And we're going to put the details in the description when we post this episode, as well as in the newsletter.
excellent. Um, so back to labels. The allergens, I think, just as a follow up from last week, I put together a list of the things that need to be called out,
Yeah.
which was much longer than I thought.
I
So,
just saw him flipping a page, by the look of it,
yeah,
I know people who are listening to us for a couple, wow, 8 months in now. You all know that we
mm,
are in the same room. We are in the
we
same
are.
room. I will catch this. We are in the same room. So please, for those of you who keep asking why is Stephen not in the studio, he is in the studio. Sorry, Stephen. Go on.
I am. So, priority allergens: milk, eggs, peanuts, soy, sesame, lupin, fish, crustaceans, mollusks, tree nuts, and cereals containing gluten. The list actually continues, but they're the top. I think it was 10 that I did. Um, there is a change or an addition actually to labeling, which came in only last month.
Is it a
So
bolded
it's
font?
it's not. It's actually regarding seafood.
Okay.
So from the 1st of July 2026, just over a month ago, hospitality businesses have been required to identify ready to eat seafood as with their point of origin. So whether they're Australian, imported, or mixed. Now, that I know when I wander through my local supermarket, I can see on the packet that says Australian ingredients or something like that. What I thought was really interesting is that this new rule applies to restaurants, cafes, pubs, clubs, takeaway venues, food trucks, and delivery meals.
Okay.
So from the beginning of last month, if you're ordering Uber Eats and that item is a seafood product, it should say where that seafood comes from.
Does it say or does it explain further why prioritizing seafood? I mean, of course, there are other stuff that are also very popular. Chicken, for example.
Yeah.
Why
Tomatoes
seafood?
as well. Yeah.
I'm not. Don't bait me.
Apples. I think that
That you can. No,
I,
go on.
I think I think one of the reasons, and there's a bit of media and discussion around this. It's a good question to ask, but one of the reasons is that we have so much seafood which is in Australia being served where it's not clear where that seafood comes from. So I have a local fish market that I go to all the time. I really love it. They're very famous in Sydney. They're over in St. Peters, just around the corner from one of my favourite
Drop the name.
breweries. So Farris Brothers Seafood.
Yes.
So great seafood place.
We'll include the details in the newsletter too.
We will?
And if
Okay.
you mention Stephen,
They are nice.
if you mention Stephen, you might get an extra prawn every 1 kilogram of prawn that you purchase.
And so on their labels, they have the origin of the item.
Yes.
But when I go to my local fish shop and I order a fish and chips, or if I'm in the local pub or the RSL or somewhere, this new rule also applies in that situation. And so I should be able to ask where the seafood comes from, and it is now law that they tell me.
Okay.
So it's a huge change.
Do you think it will inevitably increase the price in the fish and chip shop or a cafe? Because I would imagine that there's probably they're not probably using. Let me choose my words very carefully. They obviously it needs to be economical for them in terms of choosing the type
That's
of
right.
fish that they deep fried, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And
Well,
often,
note, it's not necessarily the species; it's the origin.
okay,
And that's actually one of the fascinating things for me. So, anyone who has seen any report done on seafood, and it's the report that somebody on the ABC rolls out every 6 months, where they go and test 4 different fishes from the local place, and they find out that 2 of them aren't what they're supposed to be.
yes,
That's not the point. It's
okay,
where they come from.
okay, okay. Sorry,
So,
I misunderstood this because I think we watched the same
mm,
investigative report that 80% or 90% of what is being sold as salmon here in Australia is actually trout.
yeah, yeah, or it could be farmed and not line caught.
Okay.
Or even worse, and this is where you'll get a rise out of me, it could come from a country where drift netting is allowed. And I categorically do not support in any way, nobody will be able to convince me otherwise.
Okay,
The drift net
educate me
is a
on
good
this
thing.
because I do not know. I know the difference between wild caught versus farm,
Hmm.
but go on and give us a little bit of a
Yep.
explanation as to what the differences are and why you're so against a specific type of fishing.
Mm. So, line caught means that it may not be a single line, it might be a long line. And there are a lot of people who would object to long line fishing as well. But essentially, the fish needs to grab the bait.
Okay.
Uh, in farmed fishing, you put all the fish into a pen where they can't escape, and the fish grow up, and then you harvest the fish. And again, a lot of people are anti farm fishing. But um, the type of fishing, which includes throwing into the ocean an enormous net, in some cases, they are hundreds of meters long, and dragging it along the seabed and pulling up absolutely everything that you can onto the
Ah,
back deck, and then trying to sort out the things that you want and the things that you don't want. I fundamentally object to that style of fishing.
okay, I would agree with you because I also watch a I can't remember whether it's ABC or not, but basically the amount of food waste
Yeah.
because of the bycatch.
And it's damage to the ecosystem, it's damage to the habitat. Yeah, it's terrible. And it's been outlawed in many places.
So, but this is probably the reason why the country of origin is very important, because
Mm.
certain practices can be banned in certain countries, and usually Australia is up there in terms of being ethical, in terms of being
Mm,
environmentally responsible and accountable.
yeah,
However, it's really hard to police other countries, and the certain practices that are still allowed in the different countries. So
that's right.
having the knowledge of country of origin at least help people like you and me,
Mm,
consumers, to make a decision which
mm.
practices that you potentially uh will ban, like
Well, you need to be able to make the choice.
yes,
And I mean, there are a bunch of other reasons that you might want to know where it comes from as well.
mercury.
Exactly. Minerals and other things and heavy metals that might be present. But also, you just might be concerned about freshness.
That is correct.
So, I was watching a TV series last night, and they're in the middle of the desert, and he orders fish and chips, and his offsider says, "We're nowhere near the sea."
Yes.
It's, I'm not saying that you shouldn't eat fish and chips
At the desert.
in the desert, but you need to make a choice. You need to have a think about it.
And speaking of TV shows,
Hmm?
this is actually a movie that is on Netflix, but I'm curious, knowing who you are and how you go about life. I am really curious to ask you this question. So, have you seen the trailer, or maybe potentially have you watched the movie called The Last House on Netflix?
I haven't.
So, to give you the premise of the show without spoiling it, basically, uh, residents of this planet, so everyone is being by mysterious force is being locked inside their house. They cannot leave.
Oh, okay.
So everything is sealed. You can't even break the wall to go out. Basically, it's sealed.
Hmm.
It will let in oxygen.
Sounds like COVID.
It will let in oxygen. Hey, hey, excuse me. Gladys let us out, and
That's true.
initially an hour a day. And Dr. Carrie Chan, oh
Yep.
my god, that was such a moment in life, right? 11 o'clock, we would gather. It is a television event. We would
Mm-hmm.
gather in front of television and
Yep.
watch the news. Anyway, so the you need to stay inside your house,
Okay.
no in and out except for oxygen and water through the pipes and everything. So your services are still on. So gas, electricity, and water.
Hmm. Okay.
How long do you think you can, like the current condition and situation of your house, how long do you think you can last?
Um, I think that I think my wife and I and cats could do a reasonable amount of time. I'm gonna say a month,
God,
2 months,
the garden is not
maybe.
included because it needs to be in one
Has
single
to be inside. Okay.
inside.
Yeah. Um, maybe a month.
Okay. So when we were watching this, I actually made a mental note and mental calculation and categorized and inventorized everything that when it comes to food,
Mm.
everything that I have and hoard it inside the
Okay.
house.
Yep.
I think we can do 3 months.
Okay. So you've got 3 months worth of food.
Yes. Well, no, I have one probably like 3 weeks worth of food, but I also eat a lot. So if I eat like a normal person, I think
Mm.
I will be able to stretch it for to 3 months.
Yeah, and I guess you're not going outside and exercising, so.
That is very true. Sorry, that was a segue because I don't know. Do you find yourself sometimes when you're watching something, then you ask yourself, "Oh, can I survive this or not? Or can I do this better than the character or even real
Mhm.
people?" So, for example, one of the reasons why I cannot watch Survivor is because I would start thinking, what would I do for that challenge? What would I do in that situation? What would I do in this tribal council? And the same way with the Amazing Race, or back in the day, The Apprentice. So this
Yeah.
takes away the joy of watching for me.
I watch Alone, and there are a number of versions of Alone.
That
Uh,
I love to watch because
yeah.
I know I will not last, so I don't even try.
Nice. Um, But I'm talking about alone. So there's quite a lot of insect eating on that show. Did you know that Food Safety
Yes,
Australia uh,
allows for.
now has rules around eating of house crickets, mealyworms, super mealyworms, and other non-traditional foods,
Yeah.
which is great. It's good to have some guidelines around some of those.
I mean, this is the thing. I'm saying this from a scientific point of view, right? So back in the day, somebody up there in our, lineage, in our ancestor decided that, hey, look at that creature, prawn. It looks like cockroach, but from the sea, and we decided to eat it.
Mm.
But why didn't they do the same with the actual cockroach? Because the reason why I say this, including with crickets, ants, and the grasshopper, in terms of the calorie density and protein density per weight, they actually are better source of nutrients. Uh, Easier to farm,
Hmm.
high reproduction rate.
Yeah.
Reproduction rate.
Yeah.
Uh, the area needed to raise the amount of food
Is
per
much
mass
less.
is much less compared to a cow, for example. So why do you think we don't? Somebody up there in our lineage, why do you think they didn't decide that insects should be our food source?
Uh, I think that there are a number of countries where insects are a
Not
food
as a
source.
staple, though. No?
No, not as a staple. No. Maybe maybe you need to eat a lot of insects
And
to
back in the
get the
day,
same protein
they
that
could
you might
not
get out of a
farm it.
steak. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm not saying that I will trade
It's a good question.
steak to cockroach, but, uh, I mean,
Well, insect, grasshopper. I've had grasshopper. They're crunchy.
and silkworm apparently is really good too.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
apparently, allegedly.
Witchetty grub is a bit of a strange texture.
Okay.
I probably wouldn't have it again.
Well, you have the same issue with avocado, so I don't know whether you're to be
That is
trusted.
very true. Look, back on the insects though, we've been talking about allergens and food labeling. So I'm kind of starting to think that in the future there'll be this label on food. The more complex it is, the longer the label will be. But I think that's a good thing. I think labeling the allergens is really important. It occurred to me that if you're farming insects for to be eaten, um, how do you clean them, or how do you make sure that
Do you know that
things that
cockroaches are the cleanest creature in the
well,
world?
they probably are, but how do you stop dust mites from getting into the
Well,
processing, for example? And people are very allergic to dust
well,
mites.
I think the same way that you stop the bird flu and salmonella from from infecting our poultry
Mm,
processing and industry.
yeah.
But the other thing that I mean, I love all the information that you need to put on the food label. 99.9% of them are warranted and fair and logical.
Yep.
However, I also reject the excessive details that were only put there for the sake of protecting themselves from litigation. Let
Yeah.
me give you an example. If I'm buying a carton of milk, I do not need the carton to tell me that it contains milk.
Mm,
If I buy a jar of peanut butter, I do not need the label to tell me that it contains peanut.
yeah.
I do need them to tell me when I buy a protein bar or when I buy my coconut yogurt,
Mm,
then if they do contain dairy, please tell me that.
yes. Yes. Yeah.
Because sometimes like they just if because just imagine if you're so for example, uh my coworker Kathleen, she's gluten intolerant.
Hmm.
But then everything writes things like may contain traces of gluten. So you you don't know which is actually safe, which is the one that is actually being
It's
just
very
slapped there
challenging.
just to put up with potential lawsuit, for example.
Yeah. Yeah. I think uh, the last part of our podcast, I wanted to touch on one of the things that you mentioned a little bit earlier. You mentioned coffee,
Yes.
and in the Four Corners double episode, they went pretty deep on cacao or chocolate.
Yes.
And I wanted to do something a little bit the same with coffee, because most of our listeners would drink coffee. Probably most of our listeners eat chocolate as well. But coffee is in our everyday,
Especially here in Australia.
Yeah.
And I know that our American friends and listeners and viewers and readers and subscribers, we love you so much. But what you drink and classify as coffee is not coffee.
Well, I'm going to call myself out as a coffee snob as well.
No, don't mean that. My standard for coffee is not very high, Stephen, but you Americans take it to a whole different level that I can't tolerate. But anyway, go on.
Well, I have a question for our listeners and for you to start with, and you've half answered it already. So, how much do you want to know about your coffee, where it comes from, who it was produced by, maybe what year it was harvested, how old is it, maybe a batch number? Do you want to know how much the farmer was paid?
That is the
coffee?
part. As long as it's fairly traded, because I was born and I grew up in a country where Indonesia is one of the major coffee farming
Producers?
and suppliers and
Yep.
producers in the world. But I know for a fact that because farmers in Indonesia, including coffee farmers, are normally in the cooperative, right? And I do know that a lot of them are actually being paid pennies when it comes to the coffee that they produce. And Indonesian coffees like Sumatran coffee, Toraja coffee, Luwak coffee are probably one of the highly sought after and highly prized and valued coffees in the world. But I know for a fact that our farmers, Indonesian farmers, were not being paid fairly. So I only have one requirement. I mean, obviously, we've already talked about this. Safety aside, that is the minimum standard. So that goes without saying, I want my coffee to be safe.
Yeah.
But above that, I only need one thing. I only need to know one thing, that the farmers are being paid fairly.
Okay. So let me put this to you. So I buy coffee from 3 providers in Australia at the moment. One of those providers, the coffee per kilo was about $60 a
Okay.
kilo. But then there are 2 providers that I also use who are a little bit more expensive. There is one that provides coffee and typically around $90 a kilo. And then one more who provides coffee at around $120 per kilo. And that sounds like a lot. They have specials, but this is their recommended retail, if you like.
Okay.
So out of those 3 producers, I really like Central American and South American coffees. So they have, say, Brazilian Sao Paulo Arabica. And they may be providing a very similar bean in quality and flavor, but at a considerably different price bracket.
Okay.
It turns out, when I did some more investigation, that the most expensive coffee has the clearest provenance of where it comes from and how much the local farmer was paid.
Okay.
But when I reached out to the $60 a kilo coffee maker, it's quite likely that he's buying from a very similar situation, and is paying a fair price, but is not pulling that through onto his website and selling that provenance as a marketing benefit or as a benefit to the people. So my question is, should you have to pay more
No.
to know where it comes from?
No, it will cost more for manufacturers, brands, and company
to follow
the steps and to be able to produce substantiation of where your products are from.
Yeah.
But I don't think that cost should be passed through to consumers. Because if you do that, then it becomes a marketing not ploy, but it becomes a value proposition that is being marketed to consumers. So if you are passing through this cost to the customers, I don't think it's also fair not to expect the producers to use this certification to justify charging more. That's number one. And number two, I do think that it should be a standard industry practice for
Yeah.
everyone, so that everybody's everybody is on the same level playing field when it comes to provenance, and when it comes to the origin and being a fair traded goods, in this case coffee. The reason why I say that is because, if you book your flight through Qantas, for example, towards the end before you click checkout, they will ask you, would you like to offset your flight?
Okay. Yep. Your carbon footprint.
Yes. I like that. I love the environment. I love being able to save the environment. I love to be able to be responsible, to take responsible and accountable action when it comes to my footprint to the world. However, I have to say that I never click yes, because there's an extra $200 to $500. I do think that it should be offset by Qantas. If Qantas is so worried about the environment and their carbon footprint,
Mm.
and I have no say to their operational
Yeah.
footprint,
Yeah.
so this should be
And it's
their
difficult to get
responsibility.
proof as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This should be the responsibility. Do not put it onto me as someone who just fly and use your service. So I feel that it's a little bit the same with our cacao,
Yeah.
our coffee, because the whole industry is a lot bigger than us. And this is the reason why a lot of people becomes disillusioned when it comes to being green or being environmental responsible, because they think that to do that, it will cost them a lot more money.
Yeah. Look, I think that there are some models around the world as we get to the close of the podcast, close of our time. There are some models around the world that have taken a number of steps forward in that space. And I would call out the wine industry as one of them. So
Yeah.
in Australia, when you buy a bottle of wine, it tells you where it comes from.
But do you think though it is because it makes a good story? I'm not saying that it makes up a story, but it makes a good story. Say for example, Tasmania has this reputation of very clean, very nature centric
Mm.
and everything. So when you say that, oh, this one is from Tasmania, it comes with a certain sort of kind of value, intangible value, that people will pay more. The same thing that when it comes from Bordeaux, or when it comes from Champagne, for example, or your sparkling one is actually Prosecco because it comes from Italy.
Mm.
So I guess you can't separate the monetary and financial value to the provenance, because some people will pay extra to get certain things from certain places.
They will, but I think my point is I think there are 67 wine regions in Australia. And if you buy a bottle of wine in Australia, it is normal for it to say what the wine region is.
Yes.
Whereas if I go to my favorite coffee bean provider, they might just say Sao Paulo,
It's not
Brazil.
yeah, it's not a standard practice to
Well, that area is about the size of the ACT. So it is an enormous area that could come from.
that. Yeah.
Whereas wine is much more specific, and it's normalized in the wine industry.
So if we can do it with the wine industry, and accept that certain places will attract higher prices, which is fine.
Yeah.
This
Well, they're going to have different costs. Their labor costs, water, and
But this goes to prove that
processing.
it is doable.
Absolutely, I think so.
Well, if you want to support our change campaign, go to change.org. No, I am kidding. I I love these issues and topics and discussion, because we both would agree that people can and should be able to buy whatever that they want, but they need to know what they're buying into, what they buy and put into their basket, what they give and feed their family with, because knowledge is power. And having that power to decide what goes into your shopping basket, which company you're going to give your hard-earned dollars to, I think that is very empowering, and it also teaches people to be accountable and responsible with their choices. And at the end of the day, I speak for myself here, and hopefully also for you, that we when presented with good options, Most of the time, people will choose well.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
unfortunately, sometimes it feels that we're choosing between the bad and the worst. And this is why a lot of people decide that, I don't really want to live a healthy lifestyle because it costs too much or
Or
it's too
it's
hard.
just too hard. Yeah.
And that makes me really sad.
Thank you very much for joining in, listening, and we look forward to having more of this discussion. I think in the weeks to come. I had a bunch of other things that I think that we should chat about in the future. Cashews is one of them. If you knew how cashews were processed and made, you probably wouldn't eat them anymore. So we can talk about that perhaps in another episode. But thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much. And last challenge, before you Google how cashews made, send me a DM, send us an email, and give me a wild guess. I will share it with Stephen and see what you come up with. On that note, thank you again.
Thank
Happy
you.
Tuesday. If you're listening to this on Thursday, then happy Thursday. Bye bye.
Bye bye.